Well, hey guys, welcome to the Military Wire with Mike Schindler. I am the Military Wire, and I am Mike Schindler, as a matter of fact, on the Military Wire. And we do interview some of America's most elite men and women who have served this country to share their stories in hopes that you, our listener, can gain an aha moment that you can apply to your own life. So today's episode, we are grateful to our sponsor, Bone Frog Cellars, founded by former Lieutenant Commander, Navy SEAL Tim Cruikshank and his business partner, David Johnson. A portion of these proceeds go to support the Navy SEAL Foundation to help the families of fallen SEALs. So thank you to our friends at Bone Frog. Be sure you check those guys out. So our guest today, Garrick Fernbaugh, I am absolutely honored to have him on the show. He also served the world's greatest Navy, 20 plus years, as a former BUDS instructor. So for those of you guys that don't know what BUDS means, it is your basic underwater demolition training for the SEALs. He's also the founder and CEO of High Value Target, which is a veteran-owned company that designs the next level 3D targets designed to simulate real life scenarios. So Garrick, first of all, thank you for being back on the Military Wire. I love having you here, and I'm excited to unpack this subject of achieving your goal in life in a VUCA world. We're going to unpack that for our audience. So Garrick, thanks for being on the show.
Oh, thank you so much, Mike. It's really nice to be back on your show.
Yeah, I love it. So let's first talk about why you chose to serve this country. I mean, this is something that fewer than 7% of those of us in the nation have done. So it makes us part of kind of that elite class. But why did you choose to serve?
You know, my answer might be a little different now at this age than it would have been many years ago. But, you know, looking back, I think in understanding things better, I think the Cold War actually had a lot to do with it. And being somewhat fear driven, to be honest, I felt like war was inevitable. When I was joining the Navy, there was going to be a big breakout. And to be perfectly honest, I didn't intend to be part of the cannon fodder. I intended to be part of special operations. So me and a crew of guys starting at probably age 13 had started out having BB gun wars and getting dressed up in camouflage and whatnot. And I think a few of the guys joined like the Marines, but I was the only guy to actually go into special operations.
Is that right? Yeah. Was that, I mean, I think we're probably similar in age. I mean, we had Red Dawn that came out, right? We had, Top Gun. That was my motivation for, I was going to be Tom Cruise. I mean, right? I mean, so I get it. I get it. And then you went special ops, which is pretty amazing. So you made it through SEAL training, right? I mean, 100 guys, maybe 20, maybe 30 get through BUDS, right? So how did you, because this is pretty important, I think, for people to understand, is you obviously set a goal, right? Young guy, you set a goal, you said, man, I'm going to do it. You go BUDS, which a lot of people wash out, great guys, right? Physically fit, right, et cetera. But a lot of people wash out. How is it that you didn't wash out? How is it that you made it through it? What do you think was the differentiator?
You know, having not quitting was not an option for me, for sure. I would literally intended to die trying or make it through training. But as I look at things now in society, I understand that I think it's so much harder to get focused on accomplishing real goals now than it was back then, to be honest. At the barracks where we lived, there was a lounge and there was one TV in that lounge. None of the rooms had TVs. There were no cell phones.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Like all of these distractions that we have today make it a lot more difficult to accomplish big goals. So there is that distinction for sure. In fact, I would say that's a big reason why the standards have been getting lower in across all the special operations communities. Like the training is not what it used to be. I think the kids just aren't as active as we used to be as well. And I think that's a part of it, but it's not that the kids aren't as smart. I think they are.
Yeah.
It's slightly different culture.
Yeah, I think that's pretty interesting. I mean, it's it's my wife and I were talking about this being, when we were growing up, it was like living in the moment, right? Garrick,
Mhm.
like if we walked outside the house, that was it. We were going to some destination. Nobody could follow us, track us, etc. We didn't have a
Yeah.
phone, pull our attention away. I think it's no different in the military. When you and I were in, that was it. I mean, I remember being, when I was on deployment, I couldn't wait until the mailbag showed up, right?
Mhm.
As soon as that helo
Mhm.
showed up, man, and it could be weeks,
Yeah.
whatever happened, right?
Yeah.
I didn't know. And now I think to your point is something that can happen in China and 30 seconds later, we're notified of it, right? Today.
Mhm.
And I think that does, I think that just screws people's heads up. I think, well, I love that you say, when you set a goal, it was easier to set a goal then, but would you say that there's some trigger today that if you really want to set a goal and get something done, what do you think people have to do in order to do that?
Well, I think there's more resources for achieving your goals, even like making it through buds. Like we had no idea what was coming up through each week and each phase back then. Now there's, lots of information out there. Oh, let me see. I think journaling is important, coming up with a
Yeah.
plan, outlining your goal. I did that all the way back when I was 18 years old, intending to make it through SEAL training. I would write down my reasons
Hmm.
for wanting to make it. Um, but now it's more than a business plan that I've developed now. I write my vision for the company, which is
Yeah.
more than the business plan. You know what I mean? And there's lots of great resources and stuff out there. There's a guy I happen to listen to on YouTube quite often named Joseph Rodriguez, and it's kind of a different way of thinking, basically. Um,
Yeah.
one of the principles is that we create our own reality through
Yeah.
what we think and how we think. Things like that. Are you familiar with that?
Oh yeah. No, and what's interesting is I'm a big believer in it, right? I mean, you got to visualize where you want to go. Uh, I think you're spot on with it.
For sure. Manifesting is
Yeah.
another term. Manifesting the reality that you want to come around. And it requires a lot of positive thinking and planning, of course.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah,
that's
and I think it's important that our audience understand that manifesting is not wishful thinking. So it's not like, hey, I'm just, I want $1 million and hopefully it'll show up on my doorstep. It
Mhm.
really is this, no, I'm going to go ahead and visualize it. I'm going to see it. I'm going to see myself fulfilling it. And then I'm going to put the work behind it to make
Yeah,
it happen. And I
yeah,
think in society today, a lot of people go, well, I'm going to manifest it. I'm just going to think about it. But, somebody else is going to have to do the work. And,
100%.
sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Spot on. Yeah, that's where I'm coming from
yeah,
with that. And I was doing that intuitively, I suppose, way back when I was 18, 19, trying to make it through SEAL training. I I had one goal, one vision, and that was
yeah.
becoming a SEAL. And now I'm listening and taking in lots of information. I'm just learning more about what I was kind of intuitively doing way back when.
Yeah.
There's a science, for lack of a better word, behind all of that.
Oh, there totally is. See, I love that. So I want to switch gears a little bit because you've got some specialized training that some will say, well, Garrick, it's no wonder why you can manifest things. It's no wonder why you're successful because you've had this specialized training. There's a saying, a few common phrases in the SEALs. Well, I'll refer to the clean ones, but easy day. I know that that's one that gets thrown around a lot. Embrace the suck. That's another one. I know that I find myself saying that often. I
Mhm.
stole it from you guys, but you know, it's essentially taking difficult situations and reframing it. Whether it's a situation, experience, etc., reframing it to understand that you're in the middle of chaos, crisis, uncertainty, whatever the situation is,
Mm.
but you're going to get through it. So how can an everyday person who's not had your training right? Which a lot of it is mindset, right? If you think about these sayings, right? Easy day.
Uh-huh.
There's no easy day, right? Especially if you're a SEAL in the middle of doing whatever. Like, but for you to throw out, easy day or embrace the suck, man, this is what we do. I'm going to embrace it. You're talking about reframing the circumstance that you're going through right now and creating a different outlook. So what does somebody that's not had your training, how do they do that? I mean, is there a trick to it?
I'm not sure I subscribe to either one of those phrases.
Is that right? Okay, good.
But I know I used to.
Interesting.
So
Okay.
enjoy the journey. Like it would be a phrase that appreciate the journey that you're on right now would be a phrase that I accept now. And it kind of relates back, let's in buds training, just kind of going back to that. It could be hard to appreciate it. But if I were to go through it now, I would. And at times I did, to be honest.
Yeah.
So, it's hard if you just have this end goal in mind all the way through training. I'd venture to say you won't make it because there is so much. It's just so overwhelming to think about everything that's entailed in that 6 months, in the initial 6 months of buds training. And it's like, man, I just got to make it through this phase, through first phase, then through second phase, through third phase, and each phase has hurdles within it. But sometimes, I mean, there's a moment I remember running back from chow one morning in first phase. And as we're running, the class leader is reading off the schedule of what we're going to be doing that day. I'm overwhelmed.
Yeah.
I'm just like, oh my God, how am I even going to make it through this day? It's just, then it becomes one evolution at a time. And some of the evolutions are a big kick in the nuts. And you find yourself just, God, if I can just make it through the next 5 minutes, through the next minute, you know what I mean? You're just continually breaking it down. But as you're doing that, you're getting stronger. You're accomplishing goals. Like now I would say, appreciate it. Like every moment you're getting closer. The things that I did strangely appreciate were when guys quit.
Is that right? Interesting.
In a certain way, I was like, it made me feel stronger. It is so you're kind of appreciating. I'm like, yep, we're thinning out the herd. I'm still here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
One more guy just left, and I'm still here. I, in a strange way, appreciated that.
Well, it's interesting. You're describing micro wins, right? We talked about this for those that don't know. We talked about this prior to the show starting, but micro wins to breaking it down, right? This overwhelming situation. You talk about your overwhelming schedule and breaking it down. Like if I can just get through this evolution, if I can just get through these next 5 minutes, just this next minute, right? And counting that, I think what you're saying is counting that a win, right? Man, I got through, this minute. That's a win. I'm grateful for that win. That gives you this little bit of boost that you need to carry on to the next one. Mark Devine, Commander Devine, he does like 300 burpees a day.
He's a hard man. Mark was in class 155 and I was in 154.
Is that right?
We did our first or second deployment overseas at the same time, forward deployed to the Philippines. But yeah.
I can't even, like I told Mark, I said, man, if I can get through 20 burpees without, burping something up, I'm in good shape. And to this day, he still does 300 burpees. I'm like, how do you do it? And he goes, I'm counting it. Essentially what you said is like counting it all joy. Like every time I get through like 10 or something like that.
I think we called him Cyborg at SEAL Team 3 years
ago,
right? If I'm not mistaken. He's always been an anomaly, to be perfectly honest. And I think he was a stockbroker in New York before.
Yes.
He was a little older.
Yes.
When we showed up at Buds. it was like, dude, you left that to come here.
Yeah. And it was like the number one guy or something like that. I mean, yeah, I mean, he's just to this day, I don't think he's changed, but I think, his whole thing is micro wins. You got to create these micro wins, which is what you're talking about, Garrick. So I want our audience to really understand that is, life's going to throw a bunch of stuff at you. And it's really important to just understand what the micro win is in that moment. Like the moment could seem really overwhelming, but you got to break it down. I love that piece. So I want to talk, speaking of chaos, I mean, this past year, right, has been chaotic. Like cities across America have had trouble. They've burned. We've had riots. We've had economic impact. We've had a pandemic. We've had all this stuff, what we would call VUCA. For those of you guys that don't know, that's came out of the Army War College, stands for Volatility, Uncertainty, Complexity, Ambiguity. I think everybody's faced it. It's chaos. Let's just say for easy terms, it's just chaos. Chaos and people's schedules are disrupted. You talked about micro wins, but I think you talked about something more important, Garrick, and I really want you to unpack this a little bit, is you talked a little bit about a vision and an end goal, right?
Mm-hmm.
Talk to us about how that is important, or how is it important to have a vision and end goal?
Well, it certainly is. If you're an entrepreneur and starting a business, you need a vision and an end goal. Did I have I suppose, even when I was in the SEAL teams, I had a vision, it's the next pay grade. It's maybe like, what am I going to do after I leave this command? Where am I going next? My reputation among the operators, I would say, was a part of that vision. So yeah, I think it's important for everyone to have a vision. But I would, as I think of, as I'm listening to myself talk, maybe make it somewhat of a spiritual journey vision as well, like self-improvement. Honestly, Mike, like I've done a lot of that in the last maybe year and a half. I've done a lot of that in the last 5 years for sure. But especially in about the last year and a half or so, I've really been on this journey that's been life-changing for sure.
That's really awesome. I think we get so hung up in like horizontal development, and I'll explain horizontal development. That's taking somebody and giving them the skills, training, and abilities, right? Like that's still training, like how to shoot a gun or how to fall out of an airplane or how to scuba, right? Whatever.
Mm-hmm.
That is a skill. That's a trait that you learn. And then the importance of developing that vertical development, right? That higher power, that spiritual journey that you talk about, whatever that is for the individual, but understanding that you have to have a greater awareness. And I think you're tapping that. And I think that's life-changing. So do you think that's an important equation when you get into business? It goes beyond dollars and cents. Is that what I'm hearing?
Oh, absolutely. Because it's changed my, how I interact with people being on this journey. And a large part of this journey is, I would say, like thinking positively. So like, as I mentioned, when we were kicking off the show there, we create our own reality through what we think, how we think. And if we're thinking negative thoughts, then I'm essentially manifesting a negative reality around myself.
Yep.
This is what led me to like forgiving, say, like my ex-wife for parent alienation issues, which I was really bitter about. I had severe depression for a couple of years. That was quite severe, to be honest. Maybe a little PTSD as well, just due to experiences overseas. But especially regarding the depression, what I realized is at a certain point, I chose to be depressed. It was a decision. And it was like one day I was like, I choose not to do this anymore. I choose not to be miserable. I'm going to stand up, pick myself up by the bootstraps, pull my pants up, whatever, right? And carry on. But since then, and that was probably back in 2017, this journey has continued, and it's become life-changing.
That's
So
awesome.
like, yeah.
That's no, I love hearing those stories of overcoming, because everybody's got a story, and that's why we share. That's why we do these, is so people can tell their story, and so people can understand that everybody's got a story, and we need to get better at hearing other people's stories, right? Because when we do hear other people's stories, they become human.
Yeah, I've been through some adversity in the last few years. I got divorced back in 2013, and in 2014 I met uh, what I thought was a fantastic girl at the time. She was my fiance for some period of time. We started this company together called Red Frog, and I think I was still affiliated with Red Frog and doing that gig when we talked last.
Yeah.
And she hijacked the company.
Mm.
Like, she to this day maintains control of the company. I'm actually not bitter about it. Like, because if I were to get all caught up in that and surrounded in that, negativity just breeds more negativity. I just let it go. And to be honest, I feel like I was blessed. It was a huge blessing. I was like, I'll start a new company. So I took this idea of creating these better training aids, targets, which was going to be an aspect of that company, just to improve training. And I started a whole new company just based off of that.
Yeah. So talk to us about that company. So the company that you're referring to is High Value Targets. So talk to us a little bit that's 3D targets, right? So
it is. Yeah. So I was running a bunch of training courses for a few years there under the roof of Red Frog, and just realizing that the biggest weakness in the training I was conducting was the targets, the training aid. And like a lot of tactical trainers and shooters and even special ops guys, were shooting at this standard IPSC target, which is just a stamped out piece of cardboard, like a silhouette piece of cardboard. I would say that's probably the most commonly used target. And it just leaves a lot to be desired, to be perfectly honest. I'm like, we really need 3D targets, because the real world is, when we're punching into rooms, doing CQB and whatnot, everything's angles. Like, rarely is there some dude with the Saturday Night Special from 1980 down here at his hip, squared off, like we see on the targets.
Right. Yeah.
Most of the targets are so outdated. It's like, I feel like, one, we need relevant looking threats, because there's a whole psychology that goes behind what you're looking at. So an off-duty cop posing for pictures to be the next target with his backup carry gun, which is a wheel gun, you know what I mean, and a 2-inch barrel, is not realistic. It is not representative of the threats that we're encountering now. So 3D targets, I was like, okay, is it going to be like a piece of pressed foam, plastic, something like this? I know I need a 3D image, right? And I was like, no, because I have shot some of those types of targets, but the problem is, and as they advertise them, you can shoot this target 1,000 times, but you don't really know where any one of those rounds hit. So for professionals, and I would say people who take their training seriously, you need to be seeing where your rounds are impacting the target. And getting shot groups and things like that. So it needed to be paper. I'm like, okay, I need a 3D image on paper. This buddy of mine is like, hey man, you should check out this 3D animation software. So I started digging around. I found a company making this 3D animation software, and it was like the holy grail. I was like, Wow. I'm like, okay, this is what I'm doing. I got to learn how to use this software. I spent maybe the next 3 months learning 3 to 4 different programs, taught myself how to, and developed a process for creating the targets, is what it amounts to. So that's it in a nutshell. Just worked really hard to get that cranked out in a short period of time. I probably sleeping 5 hours a night for 2 to 3 months because I just wanted to get this aspect of it done and get the company rolling. I had some other ideas for creating the 3D targets, which was high resolution photos of mannequins. And then using Photoshop, I could Photoshop in different weapons and whatnot. But what I landed on was just way better, way better.
That's so cool. Well, I love that you had a vision for it. And you know what? The other part of that is you worked to make it happen. And I think that's important for people to understand today is, you know, the whole marketplace is evolving, to your point. And, you know, maybe in some ways, I pray that we never have to go to war again, that we, you know, our streets become peaceful, right? Like you do.
For
Like
sure.
nobody ever wants to go to war, but we can't, we have to be smart about that. And
I'm right there with you. You
yeah,
know, it's a little bit of a catch-22. As I've evolved so much, just spiritually, I would say, and recently in life. There's a day, hopefully not too far in the future, when we should all be happy to lay down our weapons.
yeah,
I don't think that day is now. I really feel like this is my purpose in life, like a God-given purpose
yeah,
to create better training courses and train people how to protect themselves against tyranny and other threats.
yeah,
Um, so for now, but I'm
yeah,
writing a new book. I
yeah.
just finished one on firearm safety that I'm getting published here in the very near future. And then the next one after that is the Code of Conduct, which is just kind of guidance for contemporary warriors, which
Oh, that's
is,
great.
it's a martial art.
Yeah,
And it seems like all the martial arts have guidance and kind of a code of conduct that you're supposed to follow, but there isn't much um, for random guys. Like probably 90% of the people that sign up for my training courses are civilians that
yeah.
were never in the military. And I
Hmm.
find it to be quite interesting that they're really serious about high quality training. I'd say it's kind of a God thing, like
Yeah,
God inspired, you know.
that's,
And
that's great.
those guys need like a code of conduct to follow. And what I'd like to do is just plant that seed, like, hey, like right now, learning these skill sets, I think is important. But let's keep in mind like that end goal, that result that hopefully isn't too far down the road when we should all be happy to give up those guns.
Yeah, that's so great. I love that. Right. So, Garrick, how do people find you? How do they find your company? How do they follow you? I think you're onto it. Not only do you have to have, you know, the skills and ability, we have to know that stuff, right? We have to be in some ways self-reliant, right? We
Mhm,
can't wait
mhm.
for somebody to show up. But number two, that positive piece, that mindset that you're talking about, that vertical alignment too is so important. So, I gotta believe you're on social media. Maybe not. Maybe you said I'm scrapping social media, but if you've, how do people find you? How do they follow you?
Okay. High Value Target is on Instagram, and the website is highvaluetarget.com. You can find me there. You can see all the targets that I've got up online and whatnot. Um, I'm going to get going on developing some new social media content, like better high quality stuff. I've got some pictures of probably most of the targets on the Instagram page. I canned Facebook. Facebook wouldn't allow me to pay to promote even a
Yeah.
t-shirt when we were still doing Red Frog.
Wow. Yeah.
So, you know, and I'm not so sure Instagram would allow me to pay to promote, advertise the targets. They might not. This cancel culture thing is a real thing.
Yeah.
There's a buddy of mine doing some training courses, and he doesn't say anything political, like on his company page. I don't either on the company page. On my personal Instagram page, there might be a couple things
Yeah.
politically related.
Yeah.
But Shopify, he was based with Shopify. They canned him, gave him 24
Wow.
hours notice. We're deleting your website. And he's just a former special operations guy doing training. And he banked with Chase. And Chase froze all of his funds in his account. He said for 200 to 300 days. Well, if he didn't have money coming in from the VA, he would have been seriously screwed, you know?
Yeah.
Um, there's some really alarming things going on, in my opinion.
No, I think you're right. And I think that's a whole nother topic that I might just have you back on the show to talk about this, the cancel culture. And I try to steer away from politics and anything related, but
Yeah,
I think there comes a point where we can't any longer, to your point, because the reason you and I raised our right hand was to defend the right for people to have differing opinions. And
for
the
sure.
Constitution means something to you and me, and
For
for
sure.
people to start canceling people because they disagree, that's a slippery slope, and that's a whole nother show. So I don't want to get into
Yeah.
it because we could
I'll
go.
hold, I'll hold the next thought.
Yeah, we'll have that
So
for
we
another
don't
time.
deviate
But
from this topic too far
yeah,
here.
yeah, that's a good topic. But Garrick, I just want to say thank you for helping us really understand how to achieve a goal and how to develop both not only the horizontal development that we need, but that vertical alignment that we need to, and setting the importance of setting goals. I love hearing about your new company. I love the ambition
Thank you.
behind it. I love the fact that you had one company that wasn't going the way you wanted, but you didn't let that define you. You said, you know what, I'm moving on. We're starting this, and
Sure.
you're pressing on moving forward, which I think is amazing. So, to our audience, man, be sure to check out Garrick. Be sure to check out his new company. For those of you who are still searching for mission, purpose, identity after you've left the service, be sure you check us out. Visit our website, Operation Military Family. We'll help you guys discover your post-service identity. We'll get you back on track. And Garrick, I just want to say thank you again for being on the show. We'll definitely have you back for sure, buddy.
Thank you so much, Mike. I really enjoyed being on your show. Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you.